the Director of Education. She is from Dominica and has given over 4 decades of her professional life to service in the education department of the Seventh Adventist Church. That is really outstanding. There's so much I can say about her, but I'm going to be quick with this one. As I indicated, she's attended Seventh Adventist Primary Secondary School. She functioned as a principal of a primary school in Dominica. I believe it was the Ben's Seventh Adventist Primary School. And afterwards, I think after about 13 or so years, she became the principal of the secondary school. It's now called Arthur Waljan Seventh Adventist Academy. And in 2009, she became the Director of Education for the East Caribbean Conference. And she assumed that responsibility until, I believe it was 2022 or thereabouts, when she became the Director of Education for the Caribbean Union. Dr. Magloire is a college mate of mine. I met her when I studied in CUC back then. Always known her to be a very diligent young lady, and she has exemplified Christian virtues and Christian characteristics. She holds a doctoral degree, I believe, from Andrews University. She has studied in various universities. This afternoon, we are just delighted to have her with us to Let's Talk. Dr. Magloire, welcome to Let's Talk.
Thank you very much, Dr. Greene. It's certainly a pleasure to be here this afternoon, and it is really an awesome opportunity to talk a little bit about Seventh-day Adventist education. I look forward to the discussion this afternoon.
I know you're very passionate about Adventist Christian education, so we're looking forward to an engaging conversation.
I am.
In the meantime, I want to introduce our second guest. Our second guest is Melecia Campbell-Edwards. She currently functions as the principal of the Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School in Antigua. Now, Miss Edwards, unlike Dr. Magloire, who has been a lifelong product of Adventist education, Miss Edwards matriculated in various public institutions, but she has been serving in the Seventh Adventist Church as a primary school teacher, as a secondary school teacher, and now as the principal of the Antigua Seventh Adventist Secondary School. Permit me to say that she started, I believe she's Jamaican by birth. She started her academic journey in Jamaica very soon after leaving primary school. She had a liking to the area of structural engineering. She studied at the University of Technology in Jamaica and eventually worked as a junior engineer and a construction site supervisor. She has since excelled in various areas. And again, in the interest of time, I'd like to let you know that she is a certified project manager, having successfully completed project management professional certification. She's a lifelong learner. She currently holds a university diploma in structural engineering, a bachelor's of science in construction engineering and management, a master's of science in project management, an MBA in human resource management, and a master's degree in educational leadership. So she is well-studied, well-versed, and well-equipped for her role as principal of the Antigua Seventh Adventist School. Like Dr. Magloire, she is involved in her church. She has served in various capacities. And this afternoon, I'm delighted to welcome Mrs. Edwards. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Greene. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to this discussion today.
Okay, it is a pleasure having both of you on Let's Talk. We are always happy to talk about Adventist Christian education. And now, as I said before, we have discussed Christian education before, but we are taking a different slant this afternoon. Now, I want to begin this way. Some persons listening now are not sure that we should be discussing Adventist education on the Sabbath. Why is this an appropriate discussion to host on the Sabbath? Dr. Magloire, can we begin with you?
This is a very interesting question, Dr. Greene. You know, Adventist education is Bible-based education, which includes the education at the church and the school and the home. However, I have a feeling that there is the reservation about discussing Adventist education in the schools on a Sabbath. Now, what I want to, the truth is, our school system is a very big evangelistic project. And that evangelistic project runs 5 days a week for 9 months each year. So it's our biggest evangelistic campaign that the church sponsors, all right? And the level of success or effectiveness of that campaign will determine so many things about our church and how it will be run for the future. And so it is very appropriate to talk about evangelistic campaigns on a Sabbath, because evangelism is the heartbeat of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So what happens in the school aligns perfectly with the mission of our church. Now, additionally, it's a good time to reflect on the successes of our schools and to talk about the many ways in which God has been using his school in a very impactful way. Discussing Adventist education on a Sabbath gives us many opportunities to be inspired by the many testimonies and stories of transformation in our schools. And for sure, this is very encouraging. And additionally, Adventist education is a shared effort of the home, the school, the church. And on Sabbaths is a time when we come together as a community for fellowship. And this is definitely a perfect opportunity to engage in conversations about how to support our school system and how it can be enhanced. So yes, God is well pleased with us when we discuss Seventh-day Adventist schools on the Sabbath.
You know, I often refer to Deuteronomy chapter 6 because when Moses was leading the children of Israel, as he got to the borders of the promised land, of course, those of you who are students of the Bible would know that God had told Moses, in spite of his very hard work in leading the children of Israel from Egypt to Canaan, as they got to the borders of the promised land, he did say to Moses, "You're not going to cross over with them." And Moses, as he gave his final instructions to the people, when you go over into the promised land, one of the things he said to them, and if you read Deuteronomy chapter 6, you would see this very, very strong emphasis where he's saying you must teach the children. This is how you're going to remain faithful to God. Impress them, inspire them with these words, remind them, tie them as frontlets on their foreheads, over the doorposts, keep ringing it in their ears. The matter of what God has done in your life, how he has led in your past. This is an important dimension. And so I think when we look at the emphasis there in Deuteronomy chapter 6, in addition to those things that you have said, we can find a lot of justification. I don't know, Sister Edwards, if you have anything to add.
Right. I'd also want to say that, if we go back to the very beginning, the basics, the education in its truest sense is really to bring man back to where they were before the fall. So Sister White says it in her book, Education and Redemption are one. And so if we're going to be talking about education in its truest sense, Seventh-day Adventist education, then it really is about learning how or talking about how to bring persons, how to bring humanity, how to bring our boys and girls back to a saving relationship with Jesus Christ. So based on that, I believe that the Sabbath is the perfect time to talk about education.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, we have 1 hour, but you will discover that 1 hour goes by very, very quickly. So let me direct this second question to the Union Education Director. I want to ask you about some general statistics. You know, I'm told that Seventh-day Adventists have the largest network of academic institutions in Protestant Christianity. Can you share some numbers with us?
Definitely, and I'm so excited about the work of the Adventist Church throughout the world. We operate 6,918 primary schools, and these students, 1,411,114 students are taught by 61,232 teachers. At the secondary school level, we operate 2,801 of secondary schools or academies. We have 615,544 students, and these students are taught by 40,248 teachers. We operate 111 universities and colleges with 149,251 students and 15,635 faculty members. So when we look at it all together, our church operates 9,882 institutions, with 117,859 teachers, and 2,187,326 students. What an organization. And, you know, everything is so well connected, and we all have the same mission, which I'm sure God is very, very pleased with the work that we've been doing at our schools.
I remember one year going to the General Conference session, and the exhibition center where many of our universities were demonstrating, you know, exhibiting some of their offerings. And although I knew the statistics, it was just amazing to see how many Adventist universities there were. You know, often we hear about Andrews University and Loma Linda University and University of Southern Caribbean, Northern Caribbean University, Montemorelos University. But with that is just a drop in the bucket of so many around the world. So to say that we, as in Protestant Christianity, we operate the largest network of educational institutions, this does say something. We take seriously this matter of development of our boys and girls. And that is, I think, really very outstanding. That is something every Seventh Adventist ought to be proud of. You know, a lot of times when people hear about the Adventist church, they may think about, oh, these people worship on Sabbath. But the contribution that we make to the development of humanity in terms of bettering our boys and girls, not just for making a living here, but we like to say for this life and for the life to come. I think that is certainly outstanding. Yes, indeed.
Outstanding.
Now, you spoke about the global picture. You know, how many institutions we have, how many teachers, how many students. What about the Caribbean region? What kinds of educational institutions do we have in the Caribbean region?
Okay, in the Caribbean region, the Caribbean Union Conference in particular, we operate one university, and this is the University of the Southern Caribbean in Trinidad and Tobago. This is our flagship university, and I am so proud of the work that they have been doing over the years. You know, I belong to 2 WhatsApp chats with university graduates, And it's really marvelous. It's really encouraging to see the product of our university. And throughout the years, they've really maintained a very high standard. And every time I attend the university board, I know that they are doing so many things they did not do in the past, and they are making preparations to ensure that our students are well educated. We also operate 14 secondary schools, okay? And we have 38 elementary schools and 13 early childhood centers. So this takes us to about 10,600 students, and we have 628 teachers. So it's quite a large number of schools within the Caribbean region. And I really thank God for the successes of the schools that God has entrusted to our union.
Now, I have to say to our listeners who may not quite understand the dynamic of when we say the Caribbean region, we're talking about a Caribbean Union of Seventh-day Adventists. And essentially that region stretches from, let's say, the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, which what we would refer to as a part of North Caribbean Conference, all the way down to Guyana and Suriname and South America. This does not include places like Jamaica and the Dominican Republic and Haiti and beyond. For example, Sister Edwards, you are from Jamaica originally, and I'm sure you can tell us something about Adventist education in Jamaica.
Right. So in Jamaica, pretty similar to here in Antigua, Adventist education is very well, is a prominent educational institution, activities, facilities, institutions right there in Jamaica. What we find is that most of our young people, they tend to be a part of, once it is that they are within the church, they tend to be a part of our educational institutions there in Jamaica. From my home church, especially, I can speak to that because most of our young people, when they get to college age, then they go off to the Northern Caribbean University. So, you know, the ability or it is very likely that because there are members in our church, and I'm speaking specifically to what I'm accustomed, as members in the church, then they tend to speak and they tend to seek to find educational institutions within the Adventist realm. So that is what I'm accustomed and I can speak to.
Now, and I'm further aware that, of course, in Puerto Rico, we have Antillean University. In the Dominican Republic, we have a university there. We have one in Haiti. We have our medical school in Mexico, Montemaulas University. And so we're talking about a very extensive network. But because we are part of the Caribbean Union of Seventh Adventists, we're dealing primarily with the region, the 10 fields of the Caribbean Union. And as Dr. Magloire said, our flagship university there is the University of the Southern Caribbean. Dr. Magloire, we also have extension sites of the University of Southern Caribbean, don't we?
Okay, oh yes. The University of the Southern Caribbean operates from Trinidad in Maracas Valley, but we have a very large extension campus in the south of Trinidad in San Fernando area. We also have an extension campus in Tobago. We have one in Antigua, St. Lucia, Barbados, Guyana. I didn't miss any. Yeah, so we have all these extension campus and they are very supportive. They are aligned with the university. Some of them offer full degrees, some of them offer partial degrees, and the students complete on the main campus. But they are all very integral parts of the school family.
Okay, I got distracted a little bit. I don't know if you said Antigua, but there is one in Antigua.
Did I? I hope yes. I said Antigua.
Okay.
Yes, for sure. There's one in Antigua because I missed it. Yeah.
All right. Now, I want to zero in a little bit. And so, Mrs. Edwards, let me ask you, we have had the Antigua Seventh Adventist School in Antigua for quite a while. In fact, I think you are preparing for a major celebration, and you can tell us about that in a little bit. But I can remember a time when lots of persons considered the Antigua Seventh Adventist Secondary School to be in what you may call, quote unquote, undesirable school. How has the school been performing in recent times?
Oh boy. So, Dr. Greene, let me just say, this year, the 2024-2025 school year, we're going to be celebrating 90 years of Adventist Christian education in Antigua. And that is a major milestone for us. So already we have started looking at plans to implement to celebrate this memorable experience. Now, as it relates to the school and the school's performance, the notion that the school does not perform well, it's a myth. It's not true. And if I were supposed to, and I'm going to share some of the statistics with us today, but when we look at the last 10 years, you'll realize that the school has been operating very, very well, especially when we look at the regional examinations. So at our school, from 3rd form to 5th form, the children prepare for the CXC exams, just as would in the regular secondary schools on the island. And what I can say is that between 2016 to 2023, or rather, let me go to 2014 to 2023, the school has been operating at between 82% and 92.8%. So the notion that the school does not work and that, you know, there's no good in the school academically, that's a myth. As a matter of fact, for last year, our pass rate at the CXC level was 92.8%. 92.8%. And you mentioned the areas that are a part of the Caribbean Union. I will tell us that our school, the Antigua Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School, was placed #1 in the Caribbean region, that region that you just described. So if it's a case that our school is not performing well, then I don't know. And even here in Antigua, for the statistics last year, the school was #3 on the island. So this simply suggests that the school is performing well. For last school year, the 2022, we had 83.3%, 2021, 84.9%, 2020, 92.1%. And I want to stop and say about 2020, because 2020 was a COVID year. 2020 was the year when we were on lockdown, but our children still went out and they got 92.1%, passing 15 subject areas at the CXC level. If that is not good performance, I don't know what else is. So the notion, it's a myth. Persons who are listening, please remove it from your mind. It is not true. And even as we talk about other accomplishments, what we have been doing as a school, we have been allowing our students to become involved a little more.
Before you go on to other areas, I can't resist, because I was deliberate in asking a question that way. I can't resist just going back. When you talk about between 82 and 93%, we're talking about some really, really, really good performances there. You know, and I want to highlight mathematics, and just let's go back to last year's mathematics pass, because I know mathematics has been a cry across the Caribbean region. In some places, the national average is like 32% and that kind of thing. And I don't remember the exact percentage pass for our school, but I know it's pretty high.
Right. So for last year, the pass rate it surpassed the national pass rate. It surpassed the regional pass rate even. And, you know, persons, you will hear it being said, the math program. And I'm saying, even with the issues, the challenges that we've been having, our math program is still above the national level. It's still above the regional level. And I think that is a very good performance. Now, Marky, we're trying to improve, because, you know, there's always room for improvement. But I just want persons to understand that when it is being said that the school is underperforming, That's not true. The school is right up there with the other schools in Antigua.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Now you were going to share some other interesting stuff, so go ahead.
Okay, so, and I'm excited about this because what we have been doing as a school, we have been allowing our young people to be a little more engaged. We want to help them to understand, that even though we're Adventists, when we leave school, we still have to interact with persons outside who are not Adventists, and they don't share our same faith. And so we want to give them the exposure, we want to help them to develop their skills, we want to give them the opportunity to collaborate with others and to give them the real world experience, the learning experience that is for the 21st century. So what we have been doing, we've been allowing them to enter competitions within Antigua locally and regionally, where they can just be a part of and showcase their talents. And I am happy, I'm very happy because our children have been excelling. They have been excelling in the different areas that they have become involved in. So when we talk about most recently, the FinTech Challenge that happened last weekend, and I'm sure quite a number of persons would have heard of this. Our students placed first in the challenge that was given. And as a result of that, they will be traveling to Greece. And I'm saying, what more exposure can we offer to our boys and girls? They're going to Greece to participate in the robotics competition in Greece among 189 other countries. That is
and you're saying, Sister Edwards, you're saying that this was a competition among the schools in Antigua, Barbuda, and our school came first?
Right. So
okay.
it was a competition between schools in Antigua and Barbuda. And, I will say that the same team that won that competition last Sunday, they also were the winners of the FinTech Challenge early in September, around the 7th of September, thereabout. They were also involved in a similar FinTech Challenge. And they were also the winners. And I'm talking about they won against not only schools here in Antigua, but persons from the University of the West Indies and persons even outside of Antigua within the region. So our students have been doing well. And boy, it really gives me great pleasure to know that they have been allowing the Lord to use them in this way. Then I'm also sure that some of us would have seen the junior science quiz that was going on. Our school, they were very, very well. As a matter of fact, even the moderator of the competition, the moderator of the quiz, he kept on saying this is the first time that he's seeing the Adventist school and they're doing well and so on. And, it really gives us joy because our boys and girls are going out there and they're representing not only our school, not only themselves, not only our school, but they're representing Seventh-day Adventism in Antigua. And that is a very good thing. Then we talk about the debate and the impromptu competition. We have been there. As a matter of fact, last year, our very own Nathan Henry, he was the winner of the impromptu competition. And, I'm telling you, it really is something, Pastor, because our students now have the opportunity to see that they're just as good as anybody else. You always hear persons saying, oh, the person's from this school or that school or that school. And then they look down on the Adventist school because Adventist school is nothing. And even among our own people, we tend to hear that, oh, I hope you pass for so-and-so school. And I'm saying we're Adventists. We should support our own. And so, I am glad for the opportunity to highlight some of these successes because I want persons to understand that of a truth, God has been blessing the institution. I cannot sit here and say that everything is perfect because we're not there in terms of perfection. There's always room for improvement, I said already. But what we have been doing, we have been encouraging our boys and girls. We have been working with our boys and girls to get them to a point where they can truly represent themselves well on the local and the regional and international realm.
Now, this is exciting stuff. And I'm aware, of course, that we have Seventh Adventist parents who, if their child passes in the top 100, they tend to send them to the quote-unquote prestige schools. Now, when we look at the results over the last 10 years, for example, as you quoted, many of those prestige schools fall below where the Adventist school performed. And so it's interesting that, and I can go back to last year, because the percentage difference between second and third, what I think, or what, a few decimal places, right?
A few decimal places.
A few decimal places. So you could in some places, I would say they tie for second, right? And then when you compare it with the first place school that sent in, when our school sends in, and this is the other thing I want people to understand and appreciate, that in the Seventh Adventist school, we tend to have a philosophy that says no child left behind. And so in some institutions, if the child isn't performing well, they will tell them straight out, you're not going to write any exam. We tend to push everybody for a chance. And that does make a difference, because when you compare number 1 to number 2, number 3, and you look at the numbers, you would realize, the difference and why that is so. But let's leave that alone. I want to speak to the matter of a parent choosing not to send their child. You have children going to the primary school, and when they do well in the common entrance exam, they take them out of the Adventist school and send them to another school. Both of you, speak to that for me. What counsel, what advice, for those who felt, well, we didn't have a good program, and now you're seeing the facts, the evidence that is there to suggest that our school is really shining and excelling at the academic level. What do you say to those parents?
Well, if I have to begin, I really want to commend the Antigua SDA Secondary School for a job well done. And there is no guessing, there is no argument about the impact of the educational system at the Seventh Adventist Secondary School. And if you listen to our principal this afternoon, we can say that that school is in good hands. And I really, really want to commend that school for shining and for even getting to the first place at the Caribbean Union Conference secondary school level. So commendation, Mrs. Edwards, and I look forward to greater things as we continue to improve our standards at the Antigua school. Why do parents choose to send their children elsewhere? This is a long, lingering question that in the face of that kind of progress, persons would choose sometimes other private schools that are even more expensive to have their children. It is a matter of priorities. It's a matter of what do you actually want for your children? And that's a question I ask every time I make a presentation. What do you really want for your children? The truth is, a public school and another private school can give your children what we call a good education on the secular level. But if you want an education that is grounded in your philosophy, that supports your way of life, that points your children to heaven, you have no other choice but to have your children enrolled at a Seventh-day Adventist school. So one of the reasons, there may be others, is a matter of priority. What is most important at this point in time? And sometimes I say money is not a problem, because I've seen people who have the vision for their children, people who have their children's soul salvation as a priority. They make the effort, they make the sacrifice, they pay how they can, and they enroll their children at Seventh-day Adventist schools. So I think the biggest deterrent, the biggest reason why in the face of all that progress, persons would choose other schools is because their priority is not well set. And as soon as because you see, our church now has become very, very secular. And so our priorities are secular. It's about where can I tell my colleagues my child is attending, because we have not yet accepted our school as a prestigious school. And so I would say one of the biggest reasons why parents choose another system instead of a very progressive Adventist school is because their priorities are not properly established.
Now, Sister Edwards, before you respond, I want to just add something to this, because you did say that we're not there yet in terms of perfection. And perhaps one of the challenges, I see a question here asking about the facilities. Perhaps one of the challenges is facilities, perhaps. I mean, we continue to seek improvement. Education is expensive, of course. It is important for people to know that in Antigua, for example, the Seventh Adventist school gets no help from the government in terms of funding and that kind of thing. But in spite of, we seem to be doing pretty well. You know, robotics, and you're talking about national champions. I mean, that to me is outstanding. Go ahead.
Right, and I will say this because of a truth, our facilities, they're not what we would hope it to be. But even with the limited resources that we have, we still have been doing well. And it's because God is in it. So when Dr. Magloire spoke about priorities, I want to agree with that because you know, parents need to understand that it's more than, Sister White says it, it's more than just the pursuit of a simple course of study. It's more than that. For us, education is a ministry. And if it is that we truly understand the implications of having our boys and girls out there in other educational institutions, then we'll realize that we need to come back to the basics. All right. Now, as a school, and I'm going to talk about our facilities, as a school, we have been trying to source funding for improvement. A couple of our staff members were engaged in, Dr. Magloire, help me, what's the program called?
The grant writing.
Grant writing, thank you, the grant writing, because we're trying to see how best we can source funding to improve the facilities that we have. We have reached out to other organizations as well. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, we're able to get sponsorship from one overseas institution to help to build our STEAM program. So in terms of facilities, we're not there, but it's a building process. And one of the things that we also have to look at, and Dr. Greene mentioned, is that we don't get subsidies from government. And the school fee, I will say this, the school fee is one of the lowest school fees in Antigua. So we're trying to make the school fee as affordable as we can so that we can encourage our church members even to allow their boys and girls to be there. But some of them will choose to spend the exorbitant amounts to send their children to other schools instead of supporting us when we're trying to build.
You know, sometimes maybe we don't do enough to get the message out there. Was not our school in Antigua the first to introduce the STEAM program on the island? And when the, you know, in terms of having a robotics lab, was not our school the first to do that? And when COVID came and they had to shift to online learning, was our school not ahead of all the other schools in the island because we had already started to prepare our teachers for online instruction?
Yes.
So that?
Yes, Pastor. So the answer to all those questions are true.
So perhaps
Pastor,
we need to do a little more to get the message out there. Yes.
Pastor, I just want to add that I think the time is right for us to just, you know, some persons, they hear and they refuse to take heed. But I think we have so many success stories that we need to broadcast far and wide in Antigua. And you know, one thing I tell myself all the time, we never leave our church when our church has some limitations. You know, we still come to church, we still participate as elders and in different forums, and our churches are not perfect churches because they are led by humans who, you know, are still leaning on God, and God is still working with them. But we do not leave the church. But what I noticed about our people is they would look for every reason why the child should not attend our school. Now, infrastructure is a very, very important part of having a conducive school environment, and I must subscribe to that. With a school of under 200 students, and school fees that are not up to the point that they should be, without any kind of government assistance, we need to think about the struggles that the school go through. And I'm using this platform to just encourage anyone who has influence to talk to the school as to how best we can improve the structure. Because I really believe every school should have a very attractive physical plant. It's very important for marketing and for the students, you know, their conducive environment for learning. But we need help. But we cannot do it with less than 200 students, the way that it should be done. And I want to commend the school's efforts of helping itself. And the STEM program is a big thing for the whole of Caribbean Union. The only school in the Union with a STEM lab. No other school has anything close to the Antigua school. So we appreciate the effort they've been making over the years. And we really would want to rally around the Antigua school to help them in the areas where they should be helped so that they can be really named the prestigious school that they are. So with our support, with the quality of leadership we have at the Antigua Secondary School, I have every belief and confidence that if we put our efforts around this school will move beyond our own expectations. So keep at it, Mrs. Edwards and Pastor Greene. When you have a president who is with your school, you want nothing else. And that is very, very important as we seek by God's grace to take our school in Antigua to a much higher level. And I'm speaking about Antigua, but you know, just Caribbean Union Conference. I'm not sure when persons got to read the gleanings to see the kind of work that is happening among our schools in the Caribbean Union Conference. I know we are here from Dominica, from Trinidad, somewhere from St. Vincent online. We have Greene online too with us. And what we would need right now is to have our Seventh-day Adventist membership embracing our schools with its limitations and helping the schools to soar higher. They're already soaring high. But with your assistance, with us coming together, we can really go beyond expectations.
I'm glad you mentioned the other islands, because I was just going to let you know that we have people listening from around the Caribbean.
Right.
And what we're speaking to in terms of Antigua, we're speaking to in terms of the other territories around the Caribbean Union. You know, our time is dwindling away. We have, 13 more minutes or so. And I want to say at this point that we're going to continue this discussion next week. In fact, next week we want to have some more input from around the region. And so we're going to have Dr. Magloire, some of the education directors from different places around the union. We can't have too many at one time because we don't have so much time, but we would have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of the education directors from some of the other territories around the Caribbean Union to provide a perspective so that people do understand that, you know, we do not believe in mediocrity. I mean, again, when we look at the global picture, we see that Adventist education is extensive. We are talking about institutions that are world-class institutions, you know, medical schools and the like. We have graduates and I go back to Antigua. I don't know how many schools in the Caribbean can boast a Nobel Peace Prize winner. there is a graduate from a school in Antigua who has been on a committee that won a Global Peace Prize. In fact, he was recently appointed as some important position at the University of West Indies. We have had people from all walks of life who have matriculated at the Seventh Adventist school, and we can see that in various territories across the Caribbean Union. But one more question here. And maybe before I ask that question, because I hear both of you saying, you know, we need assistance. And so individuals out there who have the wherewithal, maybe one of the things you can do is to sponsor a child who otherwise would not have attended the Antigua school. There are some parents who may legitimately have a financial challenge. They want to, maybe they get baptized. They have 2 or 3 children. They can't afford it because they just don't have the financial resources. There may be somebody who's listening who no longer has a child in school, no longer has a child in university, and they may want to say, listen, I can sponsor a child. I can pay so much every month towards Christian education. Or 2 or 3 of you can put together and decide we're going to do this, you know. These are things that we can do. These are ways in which we can provide assistance. Now, another area, in the interest of time, I've heard people say, I don't know whether Mrs. Edwards, you want to go at this first, but I've heard people say that, listen, I'm not going to send my child to the Adventist school because they don't engage in competitive sports. I know this is a ticklish subject. There was a time when we did no competition at all, but of course we have sent a few of our students to various things, and maybe you can give us what's your yardstick, how do you determine what to send them to, what not to send them to, but those things that they have engaged in, they have excelled. But go ahead and respond. Okay,
so what we have done in looking at those persons who would participate in the different competitions, we try to find competitions that are there to help them in their academic and educational journey. For sports, again, it's a misconception. It's a misconception that the school does not participate in competitive sports. We do. However, we do it in a controlled environment. So we compete among ourselves at school. We have the second term of the school year is normally the sports term. And for that term, we have 3 houses, by the way. We have red, blue, yellow. And for that sports term, all the activities that are done on Tuesdays and within the primary school on Wednesdays, the children accumulate points to go towards their houses. And at the end of the school year, at the end of that term, towards the March roundabout, we do culminate with the sports. Now, this year we had 2 days of sporting activities. Last year we did the same thing, where the primary school and the secondary school came together and we had our sports day. And I will tell you that, oh boy, our sports day is one of the biggest highlights of the second term. It's one of the biggest highlights of the school year even. So it's not that we don't compete in sports, we do, but we do it in a controlled environment. Then we look at the church leagues. For those of us who are Adventists, we know that we have the different church leagues that happen. Right now, cricket is going on. And right now, I can tell us that we have 2 teams, from our school, we have 2 teams that are part of the church league. So it's not a case that we do not participate. Again, I'm saying it, but we do it in a controlled environment. And we try to do that because we realize that even in Antigua, if we listen to the news, we hear of all the different incidences. Last year, throughout the football season, there were many instances of, different accidents happening because persons were being violent and so on. And we're trying to, as best as possible, protect our students from that kind of space. Now, I also want to say this because some persons don't understand. At our school, in 2022, the 2022-2023 school year, so last school year, the school actually employed a trained coach to help in our school, to help in building our school sports program. So and again, I'm saying we have been making strides. We have been making strides, and we're hoping again, when we get those assistances from different persons, that we'll be able to get everything up and running. One of the things that we had looked at for the summer, last summer, was to create our sporting facility. But to be honest, the costing was the barrier. It was the deterrent in having that happen yet. We're still working on it, and we're hoping by God's grace that at the end of this school year into the summer, we'll be able to get that done. So, it's not a matter of we do not want to have our students engaging in sports. That is not the truth. That's a misconception. As a matter of fact, let me say this. Even during CXC, because one of the programs that we have at CXC level is physical education. And I will tell you that even last year, all the candidates who went in, I think there were 16 persons, or between 10 and 16 persons. I don't have the statistics in front of me. But I will say that all of the students who entered for CXC PE last year, they received a grade 1 at CXC. So it's not a matter that we're not building our sports program. It's not a matter that we don't have a sports program. It's not a matter that we're not engaging our boys and girls in physical activity. It's just that we try to do it in a controlled environment because we're looking at their safety.
Very well. Dr. Magloire, you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I want to add a very long story, which I cannot do in 7 minutes. So because I have a personal story, and I'd like to tell at some points when it comes to competitive sports, because there's a lot of pressure on schools now to be engaged in inter-school sports, and they do not think that our program is adequate. Some of our schools have fallen to the pressure and are now on the platform for inter-school competitive sports. But we work within a system, and the church has its regulations as far as competitive sports is concerned. And the church is concerned about the inherent hazards of competitive rivalry. While I was a principal, I fell into the pressure myself. And I remember we were the top team in Dominica. We were dominating sports at every level in Dominica year after year. But when we had our national meets, we had to leave the sports ground as soon as the games ended because we could not stay to get the results because of violence. I remember the first year when we got back to school, all our windows were broken. This is a result of conforming to the worldly standards of education. And the church is very clear about what we should do in every aspect of education. And it refers to the inter-school sports as having inherent hazards on competitive rivalry. Our world, we cannot escape competition. There's competition at every level, but inter-school sports gives so many opportunities to have this kind of rivalry that as an Adventist organization, we should really try to avoid. I remember pleading with the Ministry of Education on how many occasions. I said, when these children go into the sports arena, can we play some music that is more controlled, that would more appeal to an average secondary school student? But my word against their word made no sense. And so every year, I took my students to a ground that was just exactly opposite to what we were really teaching them as a school. And I was so glad that day when East Caribbean Conference pulled the brakes on us. And immediately I complied because, you see, I was enjoying the successes, but I was hurting because there were some things that were happening that was really hurting my deep soul. But I was blinded by the success of the world. And I thank God he took me out of that situation. And I tell people all the time, now every day you are bombarded with these inter-school sports. As a director, principals asking me, what is my suggestions? I said, I have one position. We are going with the position of the church. The church is also concerned about the amount of time, personnel, and finances that has to be and have to be used to just allow 2 or 3 students to participate in an activity. I also shared my experience earlier on with Pastor Greene. Sometimes you don't have the teachers that are strong enough to help the students when they find themselves in certain circumstances. So our students used to go all over the world, Czechoslovakia, everywhere in the US. They used to compete everywhere. We were really, really good. And that was the enemy's plan to blind me as a leader. And he went to Santo Domingo to compete. And I could never get over this up to this day. How many years? Almost 20 years now. I can't get over it. Because while this faithful parent was in church praising the Lord, her child was running in Santo Domingo, the pressure, because that teacher could not stand his ground. He was representing Dominica. And so Dominica had to be out there. I'm not saying that it had to happen like that for everybody, but I'm just saying about this one incident that keeps hurting me to this day, because I didn't know it was going to happen, but somebody could not stand his ground and allow the child to run on the Sabbath, because sports is really a weekend activity. And I want our people to understand that when the church gives a guideline, we don't necessarily have to always agree or always see everything that they see. Yes, we can compare it to so many other things. Oh, yes, they are still competing for spelling. They are still competing for so many things. But there are some hazards in inter-school sports that as Seventh-day Adventist schools, we need to avoid. And as our principal mentioned, we develop sports within a controlled environment. And
Certainly.
every student...
We're going to have to cut you here because our time has expired.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting discussion, and
yes.
We're going to have to continue this discussion. I know that there are lots of questions. There were a couple of questions that listeners asked that we didn't get a chance to. There was one here in particular about AI and the influence of AI and whether we're going to be able to keep ahead and fall into the... But we have next week. We're going to continue the discussion next week. And as I said, we're going to be joined by a couple of the education directors from other fields across the Caribbean Union to get a broader perspective. So those of you who are online, be sure to join us next week. We continue this very important discussion. We do have to end here. And we're sorry that we have to cut the discussion because it's really getting, interesting. And there's so many other questions that we didn't get a chance to explore together. But again, we will be here next week. So to all of our viewers, thank you for joining us. We wish you God's blessings, and we look forward to another very engaging discussion next week. God bless.
Okay. God bless.
Bless.